The Klein 7 turbine was screaming again, that high metallic whine that meant the bearing seals were about to go. I had my headphones on, halfway through downloading a torque spec sheet for the circulation pumps, when Jessa from monitoring called down. "Brian, you hearing this? The turbine? Yeah, it's the seals. Been telling Vanderman for 2 weeks we need." "Not the turbine. Seismographs going apes hit." I pulled my headphones down. The monitoring station was 2 floors up, all computers and sensor feeds, and people who'd never touched a wrench in their lives. Jessa was different though. She'd worked at the Salton Sea plant before this, knew the difference between equipment vibration and actual ground movement. "How bad?" 3.2. "Shallow. Right under us." 3.2 wasn't anything. Yellowstone burped bigger than that twice a month. The whole geothermal operation sat on top of a volcanic hotspot. That was the point. Magma close to the surface meant heat. Heat meant steam. Steam meant the 12 turbines that powered half of Wyoming. Clean energy, they called it. The future of American power independence. Vanderman loved saying that in his presentations, like he was personally saving the planet instead of just cashing Bureau of Reclamation checks. "I'll check the deep sensors after I swap these seals," I told her. "Probably just the injection wells settling." "Brian, I know, but Klein 7's about to seize, and if that happens before the night shift, Vanderman's gonna have my ass in a sling." The truth was I'd been putting off the seal replacement because Sarah had Emma this weekend, first time in 3 weeks, and I'd promised to pick her up from ballet at 5. The custody arrangement said alternate weekends, but Sarah's lawyer had somehow turned that into whenever Brian's work schedule permits, which apparently meant never. I wasn't missing this one. Not again. Klein 7 sat in the North Turbine Hall, third from the left in a row of machines that looked like jet engines fucked industrial refrigerators. Each one was maybe 30 feet long, steel housing wrapped in about 6 layers of thermal insulation and safety shielding. The steam came up from 2 miles down, superheated to 380 degrees, pressurized to 400 psi, hit the turbine blades, spun the generators, came out the other side as regular steam that we vented or recycled back into the injection wells. Simple system. Except nothing 2 miles underground is ever simple. I grabbed my Milwaukee tool bag, 18-volt impact driver, socket set, the good thermal gloves I'd bought myself because the company ones were shit, and headed for the turbine. The floor vibrated under my boots. Not earthquake vibration. Equipment vibration. 20 years doing this work, you learn the difference. Earthquakes roll. Equipment hammers. The bearing access panel was held on by 16 bolts. All of them heat-seized because nobody ever maintained the panels themselves. Fucking typical. The previous tech, guy named Morrison who'd quit last month to work at a wind farm in Nebraska, said the pay was better and the ground didn't try to kill you. He'd left notes in the maintenance logs about half the issues we had. Vanderman ignored most of them. "Budget constraints," he said. "We're a pilot program." Pilot program. We were pulling enough power to run Casper, Laramie, and half of Cheyenne, but sure, pilot program. I was wrenching on the 8th bolt when the lights flickered. Not a flicker like someone kicked a breaker. A flicker like the whole power grid hiccuped. The turbine whine dropped half an octave, then climbed back up. My gut went cold. "Jessa?" Static on the headset. "Jessa, you there?" More static, then her voice clipped. "Brian, get to monitoring. Now." "What's happening?" "Just get up here." I left my tools on the floor, first time I'd ever done that in 20 years, and ran for the stairs. The turbine hall was a quarter-mile long, high ceiling with exposed ductwork and cable trays running everywhere. Emergency lights had kicked on, the red ones they only used for evacuations. My boots echoed on the metal stairs. The monitoring station looked like mission control for a space launch. 12 workstations facing a wall of screens showing seismic data, pressure readings, temperature gradients, flow rates. Jessa stood in the center with 2 other techs I didn't know well. Priya, maybe, and the college kid whose name I kept forgetting. "Marcus?" All 3 of them were staring at the main screen. "What am I looking at?" I asked. Jessa pointed. "Injection well 14. We just lost pressure." The screen showed a cross-section view of the well shaft, 2 miles of pipe dropping straight down into the magma chamber boundary. The bottom third was red, temperature sensors reading 850 degrees, about normal for the injection zone where we pumped the spent steam back into the rock. But the pressure reading was 0. 0? That's gotta be a sensor fault. That's what I thought. Jessa pulled up another screen. Then well 12 went 0. Then 16. 3 wells. 3 separate systems. Not a sensor fault. The pipes broke, I said. At 2 miles down. All 3 of them. Within 5 minutes. The kid, Marcus, I was pretty sure now, spoke up, his voice shaking a little. Could it be the earthquake? 3.2 doesn't break hardened steel, Jessa said. Not at that depth. I was already moving toward the depth sensor panel, pulling up the deep bore readings. We had instruments down there monitoring the magma pocket itself, part of the USGS monitoring network, same system that watched for supervolcano activity. The data feed was showing wrong numbers. Jessa, this says the magma pocket dropped 60 meters in the last hour. I know. That's not possible. The pocket's been stable for. I know, Brian. The Yellowstone magma chamber was famous for being stable. Huge, yes. Catastrophically dangerous if it ever erupted, yes. But stable. The USGS had been monitoring it for 50 years. It rose maybe 10 meters a year, sometimes less. It didn't just drop 60 meters. Unless something changed. Unless something made space for it to drop into. The injection wells, I said slowly. When they broke, they dumped all that water into a void, Jessa finished. A new void that wasn't there yesterday. We stared at each other. In the background, Klein 7's whine climbed higher. One of the other screens started flashing yellow warnings. Turbine 6 showing stress fractures. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah, running late to Emma's ballet. Can you grab her at 5? She has her bag. I looked at the clock. 4:17 p.m. I need to call Vanderman, Jessa said. Where is he? Conference in Salt Lake. Won't be back until Monday. Then call the USGS. This is, Jessa, if the magma pocket's dropping because we cracked something underneath it. I know what it means. The lights flickered again. This time they stayed dim for 3 full seconds before coming back up. The air conditioning system made a grinding noise, then shut down entirely. Priya spoke up for the first time. Guys, look at the ventilation sensors. The turbine hall had a massive air circulation system. Had to, because steam leaks were common, and you couldn't have people breathing superheated vapor. The sensors monitored air quality, temperature, pressure differential. Right now they were showing an atmospheric composition reading I'd never seen before. Sulfur dioxide, 0.8 ppm. Hydrogen sulfide, 1.2 ppm. That didn't make sense. We weren't anywhere near volcanic venting levels. The magma was 2 miles down, separated by solid rock and our injection wells. Even with the wells broken, there shouldn't be gases reaching the surface this fast. Something's coming up from the wells, I said. Jessa was already pulling up the turbine hall camera feeds. Grainy security footage showing the turbine row from 4 different angles. At first I didn't see anything wrong. Then Marcus pointed at screen 3. There, by Klein 5. A thin stream of vapor, rising from the floor near the turbine housing. Not white like steam. Yellowish. Moving weird, like it was heavier than air, but still rising anyway. That's not water vapor, Priya said. The vapor expanded as we watched, spreading across the floor in a low-lying fog. It reached the first turbine's foundation and started climbing the housing, tendrils of yellow-gray gas wrapping around the thermal insulation. My phone buzzed again. Sarah, Brian, you there? We need to evacuate the plant, I said. Right now. Jessa nodded, reaching for the emergency panel. The evacuation alarm was a series of air horns loud enough to be heard across the entire facility. Turbine hall, administration building, maintenance shops, the underground access tunnels. She hit the button. Nothing happened. She hit it again. Still nothing. Power's out to the alarm system, Marcus said, checking his console. Must have failed when the grid hiccuped. Manual activation? I asked. North wall, by the equipment lockers. I ran. Behind me I heard Jessa on the phone. Yes, this is Yellowstone Geothermal Station 7. We have an emergency situation, possible volcanic gas release. The north wall was 200 feet away. The manual alarm was behind a break glass panel next to a fire extinguisher and a first aid kit. I grabbed the extinguisher mounting bracket and swung it at the glass. The alarm blared to life. 3 long blasts, pause, 3 more blasts. Through the monitoring station windows, I could see people starting to move in the turbine hall below. Day shift workers heading for the exits. Good. We had maybe 60 people on site today, fewer than normal for a Friday. Weekend skeleton crew coming in at 6. Emma's ballet ended at 5. I could make it if I left now. Grab her, get to Sarah's, prove that I could actually show up when I said I would. The custody hearing was next month. Sarah's lawyer kept bringing up my work schedule, how I prioritized career over family. Missing today would be perfect ammunition, but the yellow vapor was spreading across the turbine hall floor, and I was the only one here who knew what every system in this plant did. I pulled out my phone, typed, "Emergency at work. Can't make it. I'm sorry." Sent it before I could change my mind. Sarah's response came back in 5 seconds. Unbelievable. Then, "Don't bother rescheduling. My lawyer will handle it." I stared at the screen until it went dark. "Brian," Jess's voice through the headset. "Get back up here. You need to see this." The USGS guy's name was Dr. Richard Friel, and he sounded like he'd just woken up from a nap. "Say that again." "The magma pocket dropped how much?" 60 meters in 1 hour, Jessa repeated. She had him on speakerphone, standing in the monitoring station with me and Priya. Marcus had evacuated with everyone else. Kid was smart. 3 injection wells failed simultaneously. We're reading volcanic gases at surface level. That's not, hold on. Keyboard clatter in the background. I'm looking at our monitoring network now. Yellowstone's been stable all week. We would have seen precursor activity. Check your deep thermal sensors, I said. Specifically the ones near our injection wells. More keyboard sounds. Then a long pause. "Fuck," Friel said quietly. "Your wells went straight through the caprock." "Through the what?" "The impermeable layer separating the magma chamber from the hydrothermal system above it. It's like, imagine the magma as a sealed pressure cooker. The caprock is the lid. You just drilled holes in the lid." I looked at Jessa. She looked at Priya. Nobody said anything. Friel kept talking, his voice getting higher. "When your injection wells broke, they dumped superheated water into the caprock layer. That flash boiled, created a cavity. The magma dropped into the void. Jesus Christ, do you realize what you've done? You created a pressure differential. The magma's trying to equalize. It's rising into the new cavity space." "How fast?" Jessa asked. I need to model this." "Where's your facility director?" "Salt Lake. Conference." "Of course he is." Friel made a noise that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Okay, listen carefully. You need to shut down every turbine immediately. Cut all steam extraction. If you keep pulling heat from the magma pocket while it's destabilizing." "What happens?" I asked. "The pressure differential increases. More magma rises. Eventually it reaches the hydrothermal system. The geysers, the hot springs, all the water trapped in the rock layers. Superheated magma hits cold groundwater, creates a steam explosion." "How big?" Another pause. "Remember Mount St. Helens? The lateral blast?" "Yeah, bigger. Much bigger. This is Yellowstone." Priya made a small noise. I realized I had stopped breathing. "How much time do we have?" Jessa asked. "I don't know. Could be hours. Could be days. But every minute you keep those turbines running." "We'll shut them down," I interrupted. "All 12. Call me back when it's done. I'm alerting the USGS director and the National Park Service. They'll need to evacuate." He stopped. "Christ, how do you evacuate Yellowstone? There's 10,000 people in the park right now." He hung up. The 3 of us stood there in the monitoring station, surrounded by screens showing pressure readings and seismic data, and the security feed of yellow vapor spreading across the turbine hall floor. The air conditioning was still off. It was getting warm. 12 turbines, Priya said. Emergency shutdown procedure is, 40 minutes per turbine. 30 if we skip the cooldown cycle, I said. But that'll wreck the bearings. Brian, if we don't skip the cooldown, we won't finish for 8 hours. She was right. The normal shutdown procedure was designed to prevent equipment damage, gradually reducing steam flow, letting everything cool down slowly, preventing thermal shock to the turbine blades. But we didn't have 8 hours. We might not have 8 minutes. Okay, I said. Emergency crash shutdown. All 12 simultaneously. That'll spike the pressure in the injection wells, Jessa said. What's left of them? The wells are already broken. Can't make it worse. You sure about that? I wasn't. Not even a little bit. But the alternative was standing here arguing while the magma pocket rose and 10,000 tourists roasted in a pyroclastic flow. I'll do it from the turbine hall, I said. Manual shutdown at each unit. Faster than trying to coordinate from up here. The vapor. I'll wear a respirator. We've got the 3M1s in the equipment locker, right? Rated for volcanic gases. Jessa stared at me. Brian, Those are rated for short-term exposure. 10, 15 minutes. You're talking about an hour in there. You got a better idea? She didn't answer. I headed for the equipment locker, grabbing a full-face respirator and 2 spare filters. The respirators smelled like rubber and old sweat. Probably hadn't been serviced in months. Standard government contractor maintenance schedule. I strapped it on, checked the seal, took a test breath. Air tasted like plastic, but it flowed okay. Through the monitoring station windows, the turbine hall looked like a scene from a disaster movie. The yellow vapor had spread to cover maybe a third of the floor now, knee-high in some places, pooling around the turbine foundations. The security lights were still on, casting everything in red emergency glow. No people visible. Good. I took the stairs down. The temperature hit me first. Had to be over 100 degrees, way hotter than normal. The turbines generated heat, sure, but the cooling system usually kept it comfortable. Without AC, and with volcanic gases venting up from below, the whole hall was becoming an oven. The vapor was thicker than it looked on the cameras. I stepped off the stairs and immediately lost sight of anything more than 20 feet away. The yellow-gray fog swirled around my boots, climbing my legs. My respirator hissed with each breath. Klein, 7 was still screaming. I could hear it over everything else, that bearing seal I'd been planning to replace, grinding metal on metal. It wouldn't last much longer. I moved toward the turbine control panels, walking carefully. The vapor made the floor slick, like oil. My boots left prints in it. Not prints, tracks. Like I was walking through something semi-solid. The first turbine's shutdown panel was a metal box with a hinged cover, mounted on the turbine housing about chest height. Inside, a red emergency switch, a pressure gauge, and a manual valve wheel. The procedure was simple. Flip the switch to cut power, crank the valve to shut off steam flow, wait for the pressure gauge to hit 0. I flipped the switch. The turbine's whine dropped immediately, winding down from its operational scream to a lower groan. The pressure gauge started falling. 400 psi. 350, 300. Something moved in the vapor. I froze, hand still on the valve wheel. The fog was thick enough now that I couldn't see more than 10 feet. But I'd definitely seen movement, something low, maybe waist-high, shifting through the yellow haze. "Hello?" I called. My voice sounded muffled through the respirator. Nothing. Just the winding down turbines and the hiss of venting steam. I cranked the valve wheel shut, watching the pressure gauge drop toward 0. When it hit 50 psi, I moved to the next turbine. Turbine 2's shutdown went faster. I was getting the rhythm of it now. Switch valve gauge. Move to the next. The temperature seemed to be climbing. Sweat ran down my back, soaking my shirt. The respirator face seal was getting slippery. At turbine 4, I saw it again, movement in the vapor. Closer this time. Definitely something there. "If someone's still in here, you need to evacuate," I shouted. "This gas is toxic." The movement stopped. Then a shape resolved out of the fog, a person, standing maybe 15 feet away. They were just standing there, not moving, not responding. "Hey, you need to get out." The person took a step toward me, then another. Their gait was wrong, jerky, like their knees didn't quite bend right. The red emergency lights flickered. In that moment of dimness, I saw the person's face. It wasn't a person anymore. The skin was gray, mottled with yellow patches. The eyes were completely white, not rolled back, but white like they'd been bleached. The mouth hung open, and something dripped from it. Not saliva. Something thicker, the same yellow-gray color as the vapor. I backed away from the turbine, my hands fumbling for anything I could use as a weapon. My tool bag was back at Klein 7. The valve wheel was bolted to the turbine housing. Nothing. The thing that used to be a person lurched toward me, moving faster now. It made a sound, not words, just a wet rattling from its throat. I ran. The vapor was everywhere now, waist-high, thick enough to hide my legs. I couldn't see where I was going. Just ran toward where I remembered the stairs being, past turbine after turbine, their housings looming out of the fog like industrial ghosts. Behind me, more rattling sounds. Multiple sources. How many people had been in the turbine hall when the vapor started venting? How many hadn't evacuated? I hit the stairs going too fast, nearly wiping out. Caught the railing and hauled myself up. The things were coming from multiple directions now. I could hear them splashing through the vapor, that awful throat rattling echoing off the turbine housings. Something grabbed my ankle. I kicked reflexively, felt my boot connect with something soft. The grip released. I scrambled up the stairs 3 at a time, lungs burning inside the respirator, until I reached the monitoring station door and slammed it shut behind me. Jessa and Priya were still there, staring at the security feeds. Now I could see what they were seeing: 5, maybe 6 figures moving through the vapor on the turbine hall floor. All of them had that same jerky gait, all converging on the stairs. "What the fuck are those?" Priya whispered. I was breathing too hard to answer. Pulled the respirator off, gasped in the recycled air of the monitoring station. The vapor, it did something to them. Changed them. Changed them how? I don't know. They're not thinking anymore. Just moving. Like what? Jessa demanded. I couldn't say it. Didn't want to say it. Because saying it made it real, made it something we had to deal with instead of just a bad dream. But Priya said it for me, like zombies. The security feed showed one of the figures reaching the stairs. It started climbing, that horrible jerking movement carrying it upward step by step. The emergency lights reflected in its white eyes. "How many turbines did you shut down?" Jessa asked. 4. "We need 8 more. I'm not going back down there." "Brian, you saw them. Whatever that vapor does, it takes people over. Changes them. I go back down there without protection, I end up like that." "You had a respirator. A 15-minute respirator that I wore for half an hour. The filter's probably already compromised." I slammed my hand on the desk, making the monitors jump. "We need hazmat suits. Full containment. And we need to figure out what that vapor actually is before we go anywhere near it." The door rattled. The thing on the stairs had reached the monitoring station. It was trying the handle, jerking it back and forth with that same mechanical persistence. The door was locked, but it wasn't built to hold against determined assault. Just a standard interior door with a push-button lock. "We need to leave," Priya said. "Right now." "There's a back exit," Jessa said. "Through the equipment bay. Leads to the parking lot." "What about the turbines?" "What about them? We can't shut them down if we're dead." She was right. Obviously right. But 8 turbines still running meant 8 more hours of pulling heat from the magma pocket. 8 more hours of pressure differential building. 8 more hours before Friel's steam explosion scenario became reality. The door rattled harder. Something slammed against it. A shoulder, maybe, or a head. The frame creaked. "Okay," I said. "We evacuate. We get to safe distance. We call Friel back, tell him what's happening, let the USGS figure out next steps." "And the people in Yellowstone?" Priya asked. "National Park Service will evacuate them. That's their job. Will they have time?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. And even if I did know, I wasn't sure I wanted to admit it. The door frame splintered. A hand forced through the gap, gray skin, yellow patches, fingers bent at impossible angles. We ran for the back exit. The parking lot was empty except for my truck, a 2015 F-250 with a bad starter and a passenger door that didn't lock anymore. Sarah used to call it Brian's mistress, because I spent more time maintaining it than I did helping around the house. She wasn't completely wrong. We piled in, me driving, Jess a shotgun, Priya in the back. The truck started on the 3rd try, engine coughing before catching. Through the facility windows, I could see movement inside. More figures jerking through the turbine hall. The vapor was climbing higher, covering the windows. "Where are we going?" Priya asked. "Away," I said. Put the truck in reverse, swung out of the parking spot. "Anywhere that isn't." The ground shook. Not an earthquake shake. Not equipment vibration. Something between them. A deep rolling sensation like the earth was breathing. My truck rocked on its suspension. The facility windows rattled in their frames. "That's a 4, maybe 4.5, Jessa said. She had her phone out, checking the USGS seismic monitor app. "Shallow focus. Right under us." "The magma's rising faster," I said. "How do you know?" "Because I can feel it." I could. 20 years working above geothermal systems, you develop an instinct for what the Earth's doing below you. This felt wrong. Too much energy, too close to the surface. The air smelled like sulfur, even inside the truck with the windows up. My phone rang. Dr. Friel. I put him on speaker. "Friel, we've got a situation." "I know. I'm watching the seismic data." He sounded like he was running. "Listen, you need to get away from that facility right now. The magma pocket isn't just rising, it's fracturing the rock layers above it. You're going to have secondary venting within the next hour. Maybe less." Secondary venting? The geysers. The hot springs. Every hydrothermal feature in the caldera is about to erupt simultaneously. We're talking superheated steam, volcanic gases, Possibly magma if the venting opens wide enough. Jessa went pale. How far do we need to go? 50 miles minimum. 100 would be better. And you need to alert emergency services if there are any Park Service personnel in the blast radius. What blast radius? I interrupted. Friel didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. The entire caldera. Yellowstone's about to have its first major eruption in 70,000 years. Nobody spoke for maybe 5 seconds. Then Priya, how major? Based on the seismic data? VI6. Maybe higher. I knew what VI meant. Volcanic Explosivity Index. Mount St. Helens was VI5. Krakatoa was VI6. Tambora was VI7. And that one killed 100,000 people and caused global crop failures. You're saying we triggered a supervolcano, I said. I'm saying you destabilized the magma chamber. The supervolcano is doing what it was always going to do eventually. You just accelerated the timeline. By how much? I don't know. Could have been next year. Could have been 10,000 years from now. But Brian, and I need you to understand this, it doesn't matter. This isn't about blame. This is about the fact that 8 turbines are still running at your facility, still pulling heat, still increasing the pressure differential. Every minute they run makes the eruption bigger. I looked at the facility in my rearview mirror. The vapor was pouring from the windows now, flowing across the parking lot like a flash flood. And somewhere inside, 8 turbines were still spinning, still extracting heat from the magma rising beneath us. I shut down 4, I said, before the vapor got too thick. That's not enough. You need all 12 offline. Ideally, you need to reverse the injection wells, pump cold water back into the magma chamber, increase the pressure down there, reduce the differential. The injection wells are broken. They're what caused this. Then you need to shut down the turbines manually. No other option. I put the truck in drive, started rolling toward the parking lot exit, heading for the access road that connected the facility to Highway 191. Behind us, the facility's emergency lights were still flashing red. Ahead, the road climbed through pine forest toward the highway. Brian, Jess's voice was small. We're not actually considering going back in there. Right? We have to. We saw what that vapor does to people. We go back in, we end up like them. So we get proper protection. Hazmat suits. Full containment gear. The facility has them. They're required for volcanic gas response. Where? Equipment bay. East side of the building, near the loading dock, which is currently filling with vapor. So we're fast. Priya leaned forward from the back seat. Brian, even if we get the suits, even if we get inside and shut down the rest of the turbines, what about reversing the injection wells? Friel said we need to pump cold water back into the magma chamber. How do we do that if the wells are broken? I didn't have an answer. The injection wells were 2 miles of hardened steel pipe with sophisticated pressure control systems. If the pipes had fractured at depth, there was no fixing them. Not in time. Not with the equipment we had. But maybe we didn't need to fix them. The monitoring station, I said slowly. It has override controls for the entire injection system. We can't pump through the broken wells, but we can activate the emergency coolant reserves. What emergency coolant reserves? Jessa asked. They're in the containment tanks. 5 million gallons of treated water kept at near freezing, designed for emergency reactor cooling. We've never used them because the turbines aren't reactors, Jessa finished. They're steam engines. What good does cold water do? We pump it through the primary steam lines. It'll flash boil when it hits the magma chamber, create massive steam pressure. That'll push back against the rising magma, slow it down. Will that work? I have no idea. The truck reached the top of the access road. Highway 191 stretched ahead of us, running north-south through the park. To the north, Mammoth Hot Springs, park headquarters, the main evacuation routes. To the south, Old Faithful, Grand Prismatic Spring, 10,000 tourists and another 200 Park Service personnel. And between them, Yellowstone caldera, currently experiencing its first major magma intrusion in 70 millennia. I stopped the truck at the intersection. We can leave, Priya said. Right now. Drive north, get to safety, let emergency services handle it. Emergency services doesn't know what's happening, I said. By the time they mobilize, it'll be too late. It might be too late anyway. She wasn't wrong. Everything Friel had said suggested we were hours from eruption at most. Maybe less. Shutting down 8 turbines and activating emergency coolant systems would take, what? 2 hours if we were lucky and nothing went wrong. But 2 hours might be enough. Might slow the magma rise enough for people to evacuate. Might prevent the VI6 eruption from becoming VI7. Might save Emma. The thought hit me like cold water. Emma was in Casper, 200 miles east, probably safe from the initial eruption. But VI7 meant global ash coverage. Crop failures. Mass starvation. The kind of volcanic winter that ended civilizations. My daughter growing up in a world where the sun didn't shine and nothing grew. "We're going back," I said. Jessa grabbed my arm. "Brian, you can't. You've got Emma to think about." "That's exactly why I'm doing this." I turned the truck around and drove back toward the facility. The vapor had spread across the entire parking lot now, maybe 3 feet deep, rolling across the asphalt like an incoming tide. I parked as close to the loading dock as I could, killed the engine. Through the windshield, I could see the facility's east entrance, a roll-up cargo door and a personnel door beside it. "Equipment bays through that personnel door," I said. "Hazmat suits are in storage locker 7. Green cabinets on the left." "I know where they are," Jessa said quietly. "I helped inventory them last month." "Good." We grab the suits, we gear up, we split up. "Jessa, you head to monitoring. Activate the emergency coolant system. Priya, you come with me to the turbine hall." We shut down the remaining 8 units. "What about the things in there?" Priya asked. "The people who got exposed. We avoid them. We move fast, we stay quiet, we don't engage. And if we can't avoid them?" I reached under my seat, pulled out the tire iron I kept there for emergencies. "Then we do what we have to do." We got out of the truck. The vapor had reached the parking lot's edge now, pooling against the curb. It moved wrong, too slow for gas, too fluid for fog. And the smell coming off it was overwhelming even through the truck's air circulation. Rotten eggs and burning metal and something organic, like spoiled meat. We moved quickly across the parking lot, staying above the vapor line. The personnel door was unlocked. Emergency evacuation meant no time to lock up. Inside, the equipment bay was dark except for the emergency lights. Rows of metal shelving holding spare parts, tools, safety equipment. The hazmat suits were where Jessa said, green cabinets marked with radiation warnings, even though we didn't work with anything radioactive. I grabbed a suit, started pulling it on over my clothes. The material was thick, heavy, designed for maximum protection. Full face hood with its own air supply. Sealed gloves and boots. It took 3 minutes to get into it properly. Jessa and Priya were faster. They'd done hazmat drills more recently. By the time I finished, they were already checking their air supplies. 30 minutes per tank, Jessa said, her voice muffled through the hood. "We need to be fast." I nodded, grabbed a second air tank to carry as backup. The equipment bay door leading into the main facility was closed, but I could see vapor seeping under it. Thin wisps of yellow-gray curling across the concrete floor. "Ready?" I asked. Nobody answered, because nobody was ready for this. But we opened the door anyway. The hallway beyond was thick with vapor, chest high now, visibility maybe 10 feet. The emergency lights cast everything in red. My breathing sounded loud inside the hazmat hood, the air supply hissing with each inhale. We moved in single file, me in front with the tire iron, Priya behind me, Jessa bringing up the rear. The monitoring station was 30 feet ahead on our right. The turbine hall entrance was another 50 feet past that. Something moved in the vapor ahead. One of those jerking figures, shambling across the hallway. It hadn't seen us yet, wasn't even looking in our direction. Just moving with that horrible mechanical persistence, like a wind-up toy that couldn't stop. I raised the tire iron. Priya grabbed my arm, shook her head. She was right, we didn't need to engage. We could go around it. We pressed against the wall, moving slowly, trying not to make noise. The figure kept walking, disappeared into a side corridor. When it was gone, we kept moving. The monitoring station door was still splintered from where the things had forced through earlier. Inside, the room was dark except for the glow of computer screens. The air looked clear. The monitoring station was on its own circulation system, sealed off from the main facility ventilation. "I can do this faster without the suit," Jessa said. "The screens, the controls, I need finger dexterity. The vapor isn't in here yet. Look." She pointed at the door seal. "No wisps coming through. 5 minutes. That's all I need to activate the coolant system." I didn't like it, but she was right. The hazmat suit gloves were too bulky for precision work. 5 minutes. Then you seal yourself back in and get out. "Where will you be?" "Turbine hall." shutting down Klein 5 through Klein 12. She nodded, started stripping out of the hazmat suit. Priya and I kept moving toward the turbine hall. The main entrance was a set of double doors, heavy industrial things designed to contain sound and heat. They were closed now, but I could hear turbines through them, still running, still screaming. Klein 7's bearing seal had probably seized by now. The turbine would be tearing itself apart. I pushed through the doors. The turbine hall was a nightmare. Vapor filled the space from floor to ceiling, so thick I couldn't see the opposite wall. The turbines were ghost shapes in the fog, their housings barely visible. The temperature was insane. Had to be 130, maybe 140 degrees. My hazmat suit was already slick with condensation on the inside. And everywhere movement. Figures shambling through the vapor, dozens of them. More than I'd seen on the security cameras. Had they come from outside? Drawn by something? Or had the vapor turned more people than I'd thought? We need to be systematic, I said to Priya. Start with Klein 5, work our way down the line. You watch my back, I'll handle the shutdown controls. What if they attack? Then you tell me and we move. Klein 5's shutdown panel was 30 feet into the hall. We moved toward it, staying low even though the vapor was ceiling high now. The figures didn't seem to see well. They responded to movement more than anything else. I reached the turbine housing, found the control panel. Flipped the emergency switch. The turbine's whine started dropping. I cranked the valve wheel, watching the pressure gauge fall. Something grabbed my leg. I looked down. One of the figures had crawled through the vapor, must have been lying on the ground. Its hand was locked around my ankle, gray fingers digging into the hazmat suit material. Its face was pressed against my knee, white eyes, mouth hanging open, that yellow ooze dripping out. The suit material started smoking where the ooze touched it. Priya! She kicked the figure in the head hard. Its grip loosened. I jerked my leg free, stumbled backward. The hazmat suit had a hole now, maybe 2 inches across, the material dissolved by whatever that ooze was. Your suit's compromised, Priya said. I know. We need to get you out of here. After we finish the turbines. Brian. 7 more. We can do 7 more in 20 minutes. The air supply readout on my wrist showed 18 minutes remaining. The hole in my suit meant I was breathing facility air now, filtered through the hood seal, but not perfectly. Already I could taste something metallic, feel it burning in my throat. We moved to Klein 6. My leg was starting to hurt where the ooze had touched the suit. Not skin contact yet, the suit had multiple layers. But if the ooze kept eating through. Klein 6 shut down. Klein 7 shut down. The bearing seal screamed as I killed the steam flow, then went silent. That turbine was fucked, probably needed a complete rebuild. Vanderman's problem now. Klein 8. Klein 9. My breathing was getting harder. The metallic taste stronger. And my leg, definitely burning now. The ooze had eaten through to skin. At Klein 10, I had to stop. Leaned against the turbine housing, tried to catch my breath. My air supply showed 8 minutes. The figures were converging on us. They'd noticed our movement, started shambling in our direction from all over the hall. 2 more, Priya said. She was standing guard, waving the tire iron at any figure that got too close. You can do 2 more. Klein 11 was 60 feet away. Might as well have been a mile. My leg felt like it was on fire. The metallic taste was overwhelming now, and my vision was starting to blur. The vapor was getting to me through the suit breach. I pushed off the turbine housing, stumbled toward Klein 11. Made it maybe 20 feet before I fell. Priya caught me, hauled me upright. Come on, Brian. Come on. Klein 11's control panel. I couldn't feel my hands anymore. Couldn't tell if I was pressing the switch or not. The turbine whine dropped. I must have done something right. The valve wheel wouldn't turn. I cranked harder, using both hands. Finally it moved, the pressure gauge starting to fall. 1 more. Klein 12 was the last turbine in the row, back by the north wall. The figures were everywhere now, maybe 20 of them surrounding us in a loose circle. Not attacking yet, just watching with those white eyes, mouths hanging open. We're not going to make it, Priya said. Yes, we are. I don't know how I walked those last 80 feet. Priya was practically carrying me, dragging me forward while fending off the figures with the tire iron. One of them grabbed my shoulder. I felt that ooze eating through the suit, burning into my skin. Priya hit it with the tire iron, metal connecting with skull, and it went down. Klein 12. Last one. I could barely see the control panel through my blurred vision, but I knew where everything was from muscle memory. 20 years of maintenance work. Every turbine identical. Switch down. Valve cranked shut. Pressure gauge falling. Done. All 12 turbines offline. The hull felt wrong without their constant scream. Just the hiss of venting steam and the wet rattling of the figures closing in around us. Jessa, I said into my headset. Coolant system. Now. Her voice crackled back, already activated. Pumps are running. Brian, the seismic readings, the magma's still rising. The coolant isn't enough. How long until eruption? Friel says 30 minutes. Maybe less. 30 minutes. We were 5 minutes from the parking lot if we ran. 25 minutes to get to Emma if I drove like hell. No, that was stupid. Emma was 200 miles away. But Sarah was in Casper too, and Sarah's mom lived near Old Faithful. She'd mentioned that last month during one of our custody arguments. Said Emma wanted to visit her grandmother, but I was always too busy. Brian, focus, Priya said. She was shaking me. We need to go. She was right. We needed to evacuate. We'd done what we could. 12 turbines offline, emergency coolant pumping into the magma chamber. Either it would work or it wouldn't, but we'd tried. We started moving toward the doors. The figures parted to let us through. Why? I didn't know, didn't care. Just moved as fast as I could with Priya supporting me, through the vapor, through the hallway, back toward the equipment bay. Jessa met us there, suited up again. I activated the facility-wide emergency broadcast. Sent alerts to every park service station, every emergency service within 100 miles. They're evacuating Old Faithful now. How many people? At Old Faithful? Maybe 3,000. Park-wide, 10 to 15,000. 15,000 people with 30 minutes to evacuate. It wasn't enough time. Not nearly enough. We made it to the parking lot. My truck was still there, the vapor lapping at its tires. We piled in. I couldn't drive anymore. Priya took the wheel. Jessa climbed in back. The truck started on the first try for once. As we pulled out onto the access road, I looked back at the facility. The vapor was pouring from every opening now, flowing across the landscape like a flood. The turbines were silent. The emergency lights still flashed red. We'd done it. Shut down the operation. Activated the coolant. And it wasn't going to be enough. The ground started shaking at mile marker 12, about 3 miles from the facility. Not the rolling earthquake shake from before. A constant vibration, like the earth was an engine running at high RPM. Priya had to slow down to 30 just to keep the truck on the road. My phone rang. Friel again. The coolant's working, he said without preamble. Magma rise has slowed by 60%. You bought us time. How much time? I don't know. Could be an hour. Could be 12 hours. The system's too chaotic to model accurately. But Brian, and this is important, you didn't stop it. You delayed it. The pressure differential is still there. The magma will keep rising. So what do? You evacuate. You get as far from the caldera as possible. The USGS is mobilizing every resource we have, but ultimately this is a geological process. It'll run its course no matter what we do. I thought about Emma. About Sarah. About Sarah's mom living near Old Faithful. How bad is it going to be? Friel didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was careful. Depends on how much time your coolant bought us. If we get 12 hours, we might evacuate the park completely. Minimize casualties to low hundreds, maybe less. If we only get 1 hour, say it, 10,000 dead in the initial blast. Another 50,000 from ash inhalation over the next week. Yellowstone caldera becomes uninhabitable for decades. Ash coverage across the western United States affects agriculture for at least one growing season. Global temperature drop of 0.5 degrees Celsius from atmospheric particulates. And if it goes worse than that, then we're looking at VI7. Global crop failures, mass starvation, the kind of event that collapses civilizations. The truck hit a pothole hard enough to throw me against the door. My burned leg screamed. Through the windshield, I could see Highway 191 ahead, the main evacuation route. And on the road, cars. Hundreds of them, all heading north. The Park Service must have sent out the evacuation order. Friel, I said. The injection wells that broke, is there any way to seal them? Stop the pressure differential permanently? You'd need to pump concrete down 2 miles of pipe, seal the fracture points at depth. That's a months-long operation requiring specialized equipment. What if we didn't seal them from above? What if we collapsed them? Silence. Then, what are you suggesting? The facility has explosives. We use them for clearing rock obstructions in the injection pipes, stuck valves, that kind of thing. Small-shaped charges. If we dropped them down the broken wells, detonated them at depth, you'd collapse the pipe structure, Friel finished. Seal off the pressure release. Force the magma to stabilize instead of rising. Would it work? In theory. But Brian, you're talking about going back into that facility, into the vapor, handling explosives while... Would it work? Yes. Probably. If you could get the charges to the right depth and detonate them simultaneously. But the timing would have to be perfect, and you'd need to survive long enough to... I hung up. Priya was watching me in the rearview mirror. I know that look. That's your, I'm about to do something stupid look. We need to go back. No. Priya. No. We did our part. We shut down the turbines. We activated the coolant. We evacuated. Now we get to safety and let the experts handle it. The experts don't know how to handle this. Friel just said. I don't care what Friel said. I care that you're barely conscious, your leg is burned to shit, and you want to go back into the facility that's currently full of zombie gas and grab explosives. Shape charges. In the demolition locker. Absolutely not. From the back seat, Jessa spoke quietly. How many charges would we need? Jessa, Priya started. No, listen. If Brian's right, if we can seal those wells and stop the pressure differential, how many charges? I tried to think through the fog in my head. 3 wells broke. Each one needs at least 2 charges to guarantee collapse. 1 at the fracture point, 1 above it to seal the pipe. 6 charges total. The demolition locker has 8, Jessa said. I checked the inventory last month. We are not doing this, Priya said. 15,000 people, I said. In the park right now. Plus everyone in the surrounding area. Plus the global effects if this goes VI7. We can stop it. We might die trying. We might die anyway if we don't. The truck was slowing down. We'd hit the traffic jam of evacuating cars. Priya pulled onto the shoulder, stopped completely, turned around to look at me. You understand what you're asking? We go back, we suit up, we go into the turbine hall, we access the injection well shafts, we rig explosives at 2-mile depth, and we detonate them. All while those things are shambling around, and the vapor is eating through our suits, and the ground is shaking hard enough to knock us down. That's the plan. That's the plan. And if we fail, then we fail. But at least we tried. Priya looked at Jessa. Jessa looked at me. My leg was on fire, my vision was blurred, and I could taste blood in my mouth from whatever the vapor had done to my lungs. I probably looked like death warmed over. Okay, Priya said. Fuck it. Let's go save the world. She threw the truck into reverse, cut across the median, and started driving back toward the facility. The ground shaking was worse on the return trip. Trees were falling across the road in places. We had to swerve around them. The vapor had spread beyond the facility now, flowing across the landscape, pooling in low areas. And in the distance, geysers. Old Faithful erupting out of sequence, Beehive Geyser throwing steam 200 feet in the air, Grand Prismatic Spring boiling over its terraces. Secondary venting. Just like Friel had predicted, we reached the facility parking lot. The vapor was everywhere now, thick enough that we couldn't see the building from the truck. But I knew where everything was. The demolition locker was in the equipment bay, same place we'd gotten the hazmat suits. Fresh suits, I said. Fresh air tanks. We gear up properly this time. We did. It took 10 minutes we didn't have, but rushing would get us killed. The hazmat suits went on layer by layer. Full containment, sealed gloves, double-checked air supplies. Priya and Jessa helped me with mine. My hands were shaking too badly to do it myself. The demolition locker was a reinforced steel cabinet with a combination lock. I knew the code. Every senior maintenance tech did. Inside, shaped charges, detonators, control units, safety equipment. We loaded everything into a waterproof equipment bag. Then we went back into the facility. The turbine hall was worse than before. The figures were everywhere, dozens of them, moving through the vapor in some kind of pattern I couldn't quite understand. Not random shambling anymore. Almost like they were patrolling, guarding something. The injection well access shafts were at the back of the turbine hall, behind Klein 12. Each shaft was a vertical pipe, maybe 3 feet in diameter, dropping straight down to the injection wells 2 miles below. Under normal operation, they were sealed with pressure doors. Now, with the wells broken, the doors were blown open and vapor was pouring up from them like smoke from chimneys. We moved along the wall, staying away from the figures. They turned to track our movement, but didn't approach. Just watched. Waiting. The first shaft was well 14. I opened the equipment bag, pulled out two shaped charges. The charges were cylindrical, maybe 8 inches long, designed to focus the explosive force directionally. We'd use them to cut stuck valves, shear off bolts that wouldn't budge. Now we were going to use them to collapse 2 miles of steel pipe. I need to lower these on a cable, I said to Priya. Manually. The automated systems are offline. How will you know when they reach the right depth? Calibrated cable markings. Every 100 meters there's a flag. 2,000 meters is 20 flags. I attached the first charge to the cable, started feeding it into the shaft. The cable disappeared into the vapor pouring up from below. I could feel resistance, the charge bumping against the pipe walls, catching on obstructions. I kept feeding cable, counting the flags as they passed through my gloved hands. 500 meters. 1,000. 1,500. At 1,800 meters the cable went slack. The charge had reached the fracture point, the place where the pipe had broken, where water and steam were venting into the magma pocket. I secured the cable, started lowering the second charge. This one I sent down to 1,000 meters, high enough to seal the pipe above the break, prevent any backflow when we detonated. Then well 12. Then well 16. 6 charges total, all rigged, all ready to blow. The detonator control was a simple radio unit. 1 button, 1 frequency, simultaneous detonation of all 6 charges. I armed it, checked the signal strength. Green lights across the board. We need to get clear before we detonate, Jessa said. The pressure wave from those explosions. The ground heaved. Not a shake. A heave. Like the earth was a blanket someone had just snapped. I went down hard, smashing my already burned leg against the concrete. The pain was blinding. Through it I heard Priya shouting, Jessa screaming, and then a roar deep in bass and coming from everywhere at once. The injection well shafts started vomiting magma. Not lava. Actual liquid rock, glowing orange-red, shooting up from the shafts like geysers. It hit the turbine hall ceiling, splashed across the floor, ignited everything it touched. The figures caught fire, stumbled around making those horrible rattling sounds while they burned. Go! I screamed. Get out! We ran. Behind us the magma kept coming, flooding the turbine hall, the heat so intense I could feel it through the hazmat suit. My air supply alarm was blaring, 5 minutes left. The vapor was everywhere, the figures were burning, and we were 50 yards from the exit. The detonator was still in my hand. If I triggered it now, while the magma was erupting, the explosions might make everything worse. Or they might collapse the shafts, seal off the pressure release, stop the eruption. No way to know except to try. I pressed the button. The explosions came from below, muffled by 2 miles of rock but still powerful enough to feel. The ground shook worse than ever. The magma geysers coughed, sputtered, and then stopped. The orange-red flow cut off like someone had shut off a faucet. The vapor kept pouring from the shafts, but no more magma. The pressure differential was gone. The eruption had stopped. We'd done it. We made it to the parking lot, into the truck, onto the highway. Behind us the facility was burning, but the magma wasn't spreading. The eruption had stabilized. Friel would have his 12 hours to evacuate. Maybe more. My air supply died 5 miles from the facility. I pulled off the hazmat hood, breathed facility air, and passed out. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital in Billings. Emma was sitting next to my bed, reading a book. When she saw my eyes open, she dropped the book and grabbed my hand. Dad. Oh my God, Dad. Hey kiddo. My voice sounded like gravel. You okay? Am I? You were in a coma for 3 days. Mom's been freaking out. Where is she? Getting coffee. She's been here the whole time. Emma squeezed my hand harder. They said you saved everyone. The park service, the news, everyone. You stopped the volcano. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd triggered a super volcano and barely managed to stop it from ending civilization. But Emma was looking at me like I'd hung the moon, so I just squeezed her hand back. We had help, I said. The news later said 247 people died in the Yellowstone incident. Most from the initial vapor exposure at the facility. 43 more from secondary venting in the park, tourists who'd been too close to erupting geysers. Another 15 from the panic evacuation. Could have been 15,000. The facility is sealed now, permanently. The government declared the whole area a restricted zone. Too dangerous to operate. The broken injection wells are entombed in concrete, the turbines dismantled, the whole operation shut down. Vanderman got fired. Friel got promoted. Jessa and Priya both got medals from the Department of Energy. I got full custody of Emma. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue I was reckless, unstable, dangerous. The judge disagreed. Said someone who'd risk their life to save 15,000 strangers was exactly the kind of person who'd put their daughter first. Sometimes at night, I still dream about the vapor, about those white eyes, about the figures shambling through the turbine hall while magma erupted around them. I wake up tasting metal, feeling my leg burning. But then Emma's in the next room, sleeping safe, and the sun comes up like it always does, and the world keeps turning. We didn't end civilization. We just delayed it. That'll have to be enough.